And we're back.
We are back, more or less.
Hey, Morris, how
More
are
than
you?
less. I'm doing well. How are you?
I am doing great. Thanks for tuning in again, folks. We appreciate you listening to Dream Idiots. As always, please check us out online at dreamidiots.com and all of our socials, etc. And if you're watching this on YouTube, you may have noticed that there's not two faces with us this week. There's a third face.
Each week,
Uh,
Brian and I tell each other stories, but we're not doing that this week.
Yeah, we're taking a kind of a large left turn this week. So earlier this week, we dropped what you could call a sound portrait, perhaps called a bullet in the window frame. And we're actually recording this before we drop it because so far, only our esteemed guest and I have actually heard this content. But we're joined this week by, I won't say you're a third idiot. I'll call you our guest genius. Byron Glickfeld is with us. Hey, Byron.
How are you? It really is an honor to be here. I'm excited. I have watched the podcast quite a bit, and I love what you guys do. And Brian, you and I have not worked on an audio project for literally 30 years or more.
Since the Crusades, yeah, it's been a long time. Yeah.
And back then, you had to have razor blades and special tape and grease pencils. And
Yeah.
Yes, good old, yeah, the good old days.
one of my kids found my old character editing kit. What the hell's this? You doing drugs, Dad? Are you doing drugs?
Looks vaguely like
What are these razor blades?
drug paraphernalia. Yeah. So, thanks for being on, and then for what we dropped on Tuesday. Thanks for all your work on that. I'll take some of the credit for that, but most of the work and the research has absolutely been Byron's endeavor, and so. If you've already heard what we dropped on Tuesday, it was about 20 minutes and 30 seconds or so. We're going to go ahead and dive in and play that whole sound portrait again for Morris's benefit, since he has not heard it yet. And then we might do some pausing here and there and then kind of discuss the ramifications of what we're sharing out there and sort of where we go from here, I guess. Does that sound okay?
Sure,
You're good?
I'm good.
All right. Morris, here you go. Hi, this is Brian Treat with the Dream Idiots podcast. We're doing something a little bit different this week. Part of this is a personal story between me and a friend of mine, but it evolves into something that may solve one of the biggest mysteries and conspiracies of the 20th century. We're trying to get all the facts straight on this, and we're trying to determine what may be coincidence and what may be direct connections. The story is not complete, and a large part of why we're telling it now is because we hope you can help connect more of the dots. So, sometime during the winter of 1993 or 94, I drove from my home in Austin, Texas, up to Fort Worth to visit a friend from college. I pulled up to the house where he'd grown up since the late 1960s on a winding tree-lined street west of downtown Fort Worth. I rang the doorbell. I knocked. Maybe I did both. It was a 3-story home, and maybe he was upstairs. I glanced over and did a double take. There was a bullet hole in the wood on the front of the house and a damaged window frame, but the glass had been replaced. Once he came to the door, I asked, "Why the hell is there a bullet hole in your house?" My friend knew it was there. He had been brought home as a newborn from the hospital. His parents were down on the living room floor with him, playing with the infant, in February of 1968. My friend's father makes a phone call.
Get the operator, get me a police, please, as quickly as possible. Sonny, get me the rifle. Yes, and the police department, please. Yes, could you send a car out immediately to 5305 Quail Run? Somebody's firing through the front. Somebody just fired some shots through the front living room.
Your name, sir?
Dr. Glickfeld.
And what is your phone number, sir?
Pershing 74200.
We'll send an officer right out, sir.
Thank you.
Welcome.
Did you catch that? My friend's father, Dr. Glickfeld, is calling to report someone is firing bullets through the front. Police were quickly on the scene. Your first question is probably the same as mine. How and why was anyone recording telephone calls in the 1960s? Well, prior to this evening, several threats had been made over the phone, threatening violence. Get off the street, that kind of thing. My friend's father wanted to get one of those calls on tape. He never got one, but he did capture his own voice phoning the police. But why the threats? Well, it was clear to Dr. Glickfeld that someone who lived on Quail Run didn't want a Jew on the street. Dr. Glickfeld was defiant. Odd as it may sound today, this level of bigotry was quite common and was often codified into neighborhood development plans. These documents were called restrictive covenants, but also included rules about pets, the size of houses, etc. The Quail Run restrictive covenant actually reads, quote, "No portion of the property in the heretofore described subdivision shall ever be sold to, owned, or rented by members of the non-Aryan race. This covenant, however, will not prohibit bona fide servants of any owner and or occupant from occupying quarters provided for them by said owner or occupant." Turns out Dr. Glickfeld had become friends with some people on the street, including the man selling the properties, and the restrictive covenant was bypassed. The rule about not selling to non-Aryans was ignored when the Glickfelds moved in, and one man was incensed by this, I.B. Hale. Insel Bailey, I.B. Hale, was born in 1915. He attended Woodrow Wilson High School in Dallas, Texas, and attended college at Texas Christian University, TCU, in Fort Worth. While at TCU, he was a prominent football player, playing as a lineman for the university's team in the late 1930s and contributed to TCU's national championship victory in 1938. He was well over 6 feet tall and more than 200 pounds. Sports writers at the time would make the joke, what does the IB stand for? It stands for Itsy Bitsy. IB joined the FBI in 1941 and worked there for approximately 11 years. During his time there, he was a close and trusted associate of J. Edgar Hoover. Hale specialized in firearms, serving as an instructor. He was an exceptional shot and later taught classes in marksmanship and put on sharpshooting demonstrations around the world. He worked at the FBI until 1951 when he became chief of industrial security at Convair in Fort Worth, a major defense contractor. IB and his wife had an active social life. According to newspaper notices of the time, they played bridge and belonged to at least one dancing group that met at country clubs in Fort Worth. But they also gave off an intimidating vibe. Former neighbors of the Hale family share their memories.
Never did know him. He was pretty high in the company when I went to work there, and too far above my labor grade to talk to, or for him to listen to me. And after we moved here, I never did meet him, see him, anything. He was some kind of all-American football player at TCU, joined the FBI, got out of the FBI, and became head of industrial security at GD. That's it.
Growing up on that street was a very great childhood, and I had all the houses memorized. Like, I knew who lived in each house, and as a small child, I would go to each house. And if I had friends who lived there, I would knock on the door and ask them if those friends could come out to play. If I did not have friends who lived there, I would knock on the door, wait for someone to answer, and ask them for candy. Almost everybody would usually give me a piece of candy or something. The house at the very end of the street, Mrs. Cod, she would come to the door with this huge smile on her face and all these expressions of joy and a piece of candy, for me. And with Mr. Hale, it just wasn't that way. He was all business, and out of all the houses, the Hale house was my least favorite house. I do recall meeting Mr. Hale at least once, just as a small kid. It's a very distant, fuzzy memory, and the only thing I can really remember about it was that I just didn't like the guy. I had a bad vibe from him. I had a bad vibe from just walking up to the house. Just a little touch scary and intimidating. And, it wasn't Captain Kangaroo answering the front door. Let's put it that way.
Well, yeah, mine was over here, and let's see, I.B. Hale was next door.
He and my dad didn't get along.
No, they didn't, and not at all. And then I remember when I first met Myron, he was telling me, now be careful, this old boy next door, I.B. Hale. He says he's a mean son of a gun. And whatever you do, be careful with him. I said, all right, I sure will. And then there was a short time after that I think he called me up or something happened, and I went over there, and Beth and Myron were there, and a shot had been fired through the front window and went in the living room and went right over Myron's head or Beth's head or something, hitting the wall up there.
Both, and I was there.
You were there?
I just been born. I was 2 weeks old. They were playing.
And he thought that was I.B. Hale, and he still does this very day. Now, whether it was or not, I don't have any idea, but he thought it was.
My friend Byron picks up the story.
When Brian first contacted me in 2024 about the Hales and wanted to talk again about the shooting at my childhood home, we thought the focus was going to end up on IB's sons, Billy and Bobby Hale. They were terrors in their own rights and interesting characters. As explained in Patsy Doris Hale's book, He Heard His Brother Call His Name, the Hale boys attended Arlington Heights High School in Fort Worth in the late 1950s. They both knew Lee Harvey Oswald and his brother Robert. The Hales and the Oswalds all lived near each other at that time in the Ridgely neighborhood of Fort Worth. You can look this up in the real estate records available on the Tarrant County website, by the way. It's not conjecture or hearsay. The Hales also knew the family of prominent Texas politician John Connally. John Connally served as Secretary of the Navy and later became governor of Texas in 1963. In 1958, young Bobby Hale married the eldest daughter of John Connally, Kathleen Connally, also a student at Arlington Heights. Kathleen was only 16, pregnant at the time, and she and Bobby moved to Tallahassee, Florida. After 44 days of marriage, on the 29th of April 1959, Kathleen was killed by a shotgun blast behind her right ear. I.B. Hale traveled to Florida with John Connally for the coroner's inquest into Kathleen's death, and both fathers testified. The shooting was ruled accidental. No fingerprints of any kind were found on the gun. Connally refused to speak to the Hale family from then on. That was in 1959. Meanwhile, the Cold War was escalating, and the United States had developed a long-range supersonic bomber capable of speeds over Mach 2, and it could carry up to 5 nuclear weapons attached to its underside. It was designated the B-58, and it was built by Convair in Fort Worth. Convair later became General Dynamics. Hale was security chief at Convair, then stayed on in the same position after the merger. Global politics were very tense. Kennedy backed the failed Bay of Pigs invasion of Cuba in April 1961. It was an embarrassment, and it ratcheted up nuclear tensions even further. I've heard of a rumor that was circulated at General Dynamics. The B-58 was intended to be capable of reaching Moscow by using a series of in-flight refueling rendezvous with tanker planes in the air along the route. I was told that B-58s did in fact make it and fly over the Kremlin with live nukes at speed, generating a double sonic boom. Intense saber rattling. This was terrifying the Soviet populace. After the Bay of Pigs disaster, as a concession to bring the anxiety down a bit, Kennedy supposedly called Soviet Premier Nikita Khrushchev and agreed to stop the flights over Moscow. This may have been the beginning of the end for the B-58 contract that the U.S. government had with General Dynamics. And here's my source on that, the son of a late engineer who had worked at General Dynamics.
Yeah, what I had heard, because the B-58 program, which my father did work on, and it would take off, I believe, from Ankara in Turkey and fly to Moscow. And it would buzz Moscow carrying a live nuclear warhead. And apparently Khrushchev and the rest of the Russians were just terrified because it was a very loud airplane and they didn't have any airplanes or missiles that could shoot it down. So I guess the speculation was that when the Cuban Missile Crisis was resolved, the B-58 program was canceled.
Here's some speculation. Hale may have felt anger toward Kennedy for cutting short the B-58 program, a program that directly benefited his employer, General Dynamics, and the greater Fort Worth area. Hale certainly seemed to be staunch in his opinions of weapons, war, and what a real American was. He may have felt that Kennedy was giving away the store to the communists, as well as making too many concessions to non-whites here in the U.S. There was a strong and angry contingent of conservatives at that time, and a lot of them were in the Dallas-Fort Worth area. Now, the next month, in November 1962, Billy and Bobby Hale, IB's sons, were spotted by the FBI breaking into an apartment in Los Angeles. The apartment was being rented by Judith Exner Campbell, one of John F. Kennedy's many mistresses. This was confirmed to us by the FBI in response to our Freedom of Information Act request. The boys may have planted a bug in the apartment, but didn't appear to take anything. They sped off in a blue Corvette owned by their father, I.B. Seymour Hersh reported this in his book, The Dark Side of Camelot. Patsy Doris Hale, Billy's widow and IB's daughter-in-law, further confirms that Billy and Bobby were in Los Angeles at that time, and she also mentions that specific car. That's in her own book, He Heard His Brother Call His Name. It's possible that the Hales were part of a scheme to blackmail Kennedy. At that time, the replacement for the B-58 bomber was being developed. The two rivals for the contract were Boeing and General Dynamics. The new contract was discussed openly in Fort Worth newspapers of the time as being worth $7 billion in the early 1960s. That would be over $73 billion today, staggeringly important to the Fort Worth economy and vital to General Dynamics.
Now we come to November 1963. At this stage in his career, I.B. Hale was supposedly no longer an employee of the FBI or the U.S. government in any formal capacity. Yet his daughter-in-law has said that Hale may have contributed to planning Kennedy's motorcade route through Dallas on November 22nd. Hale was also asked to provide additional security detail overnight from the 21st until the morning of the 22nd at the Hotel Texas in Fort Worth, where JFK spoke the morning of the 22nd. That's according to an NBC News article from 2023. So, to review, maybe Hale hates JFK for his politics and for perhaps hastening the cancellation of the B-58 contract. Maybe he hates Connally for his politics and for insulting his family repeatedly and for calling his son, Bobby, a murderer. Oh, and he knows Lee Harvey Oswald because his sons went to school with him and his first wife helped Oswald land a job in 1961. That's pretty well documented. Remember when Oswald said, "I'm just a patsy"? Recall that Insaul Bailey Hale is a sharpshooter who also has a personal axe to grind with Connally and Kennedy. Did Hale convince Oswald to participate? And with Hale's connections in law enforcement, would anyone have questioned him if he'd been seen with a rifle anywhere in Dealey Plaza? Suppose he positioned himself at the west end of the plaza, either in the grassy knoll or near the railroad bridge. After Oswald fired, did Hale fire second, creating crossfire? John Connally and his wife were in the presidential limousine with John and Jackie Kennedy. Connally was seriously wounded as well. If you watch the kill shot on Kennedy, whoever hit Kennedy seems to have been an expert marksman, a hunter. And Kennedy's head explodes outward at the back, opposite the direction of the picket fence and overpass. The kill shot seems to have come from the front. Watch not only the Zapruder film, but those of Orville Nix and Marie Muchmore. You can find analyses of them on YouTube. You should also check out the CBS News documentary from a couple of years ago titled JFK, What the Doctors Saw. It's streaming on Paramount+. They interviewed 7 emergency department doctors from Parkland, and to a man, they all said Kennedy was shot from the front.
Now, we're not claiming to have all the answers, but obviously thousands and thousands of hours have been recorded for radio, podcasts, and for documentaries on this subject. To the best of our knowledge, I.B. Hale has not ever been seriously considered as a suspect. Maybe there's bias in the JFK research community, groupthink, that it couldn't possibly be someone who's not on the list of usual suspects. But he had the skill to perform such a precise shot, had personal connections, and had so much motive. Means, motive, opportunity.
So now back to the shooting at my childhood home in February 1968. The police came right away and even called for backup. My dad paid to have a Fort Worth Police Department officer stationed outside our house every night for a week or so. More interestingly, though, my dad called a good friend of his, Bert, who was connected to the Chicago Syndicate. He came to Fort Worth right away, and he and my dad sat on the roof, each with a rifle, all night, every night for a while, drinking coffee from a thermos. They were coordinating with the policeman, who I assume was in a car on the street. Now, in addition to this, Bert had an associate of his call from Chicago with a message for I.B. Hale. Hale was listed in the phone book. I have an old Fort Worth phone book, and it's right there. Here's Bert. I hope you'll excuse the poor audio quality. I recorded him in a restaurant back in 1996.
Somebody didn't like your daddy. And they had let off a few rounds. You were just a baby then. And I didn't really think that was real nice. And I came in from Chicago and sat on your father's roof. See, you and your daddy mean a lot to me. And at that time in my life, I was a different person than I am now. Things were different in the country and the world. It really wasn't proper etiquette. You don't play cricket that way. You don't endanger any family. Well, that's just the way it is. You got something with somebody, you take them out and you finger them, that's all. Real simple. You make sure their family's not there. You make sure they're far away. See, these are people that didn't know any better. But they learned. Do you bada by the road? I by the road? They don't play the game anymore. Simple. Well, very simple.
My dad told me that Hale was also contacted by the FBI. They apparently warned him that he had to stop his attacks on us immediately, or they would have to handle him in one way or another. These two developments made Hale reconsider, and he tried to broker a truce with my dad, but my dad refused. Hale supposedly began drinking heavily and died while dancing at a country club in 1971. Bert, our family friend, was not a saint. He did some awful things in his life. But he loved my dad, my mom, and me. He may have saved our lives from I.B. Hale. As a result of the shooting in 1968, I grew up in a house with bulletproof windows, a security system, and big gates, plus a loyal German Shepherd. And, I never asked my dad why he left the hole in the wood and the damaged window frame all those decades. To serve as reminders, I guess. Reminders that we had survived such an outlandish event.
So we'd like to learn more, and we're asking for your help. There are tons of online sleuths out there. Maybe citizen detectives can uncover more, either to support our story or put it to rest. Our Freedom of Information Act requests have yielded nothing so far, but the FBI says they'll get back to us. We are convinced there's a story to tell here. Please write to our team at the IB Hale Project. That's THEIBHALE Project at gmail.com. So while we were playing that back, I was watching Morris a little bit, and I believe I saw him mouth WTF at least once.
Byron, that is an astonishing story. I had gotten like a skeleton purview of it, but didn't know any of the details. I got tons of questions or observations.
Sorry that some of it was a little noisy. I'm only realizing that now, but I just hadn't filtered out.
I heard everything. I heard everything just fine.
All right.
Here they are. Okay. So your dad had a recording system set up in the house. And I guess it was a reel-to-reel type setup for.
Right. It was a Sony TC800. Right. I don't know that there was a store-bought connector or if he just jerry-rigged it. So yeah, it was noisy and I had to do some filtering on that.
Mm-hmm. Yep. That is some incredible footage, and the get the rifle was, I think that's the first time I dropped the F-bomb. Tell me more about Convair. What do you know about Convair? They became General Dynamics, but did they come out of the ashes of World War II, or were they around before World War II, or?
I will readily acknowledge that at the moment, I'm not an expert on Convair. I don't know if they were. I don't know if they existed in World War II or if they were part of the post-war boom in terms of the military-industrial complex that Eisenhower warned us about when he left. Once he left office.
Yes, that's exactly what I was thinking of. Yeah.
Yeah.
But it sounds like they're players with well, you said they were bidding against
Boeing.
Boeing,
Yeah,
and
all the
then
big
I
ones,
guess Bell Helicopter would be there. They're based out of Fort Worth, right?
Right,
Bell
right.
Helicopter.
Yeah.
So
Bell Textron, yeah, and Carswell Air Force Base, which now is the Naval Air Station, but back in the 50s and 60s and 70s and 80s, it was Carswell, and it was a major Air Force base, and so they were partnered in whatever way that works with General Dynamics and
okay.
Convair before.
So you've got a pretty heavy industrial complex situation going on in Fort Worth. You've got a lot of major players who are in and out of that area in terms of the big organizations.
Yeah, and in fact, the people that spoke in those interviews actually not only were they neighbors of mine, but they all had a connection in one way or another to General Dynamics.
Um, I don't have any real questions on the phone calls. Uh, the the guy who worked with him, I guess this is the first clip you used.
Mm-hmm.
Did, did you find anybody who liked the guy?
Well, no, not so far. I mean, I admit that I haven't looked for anyone to defend him. I think that the closest that you would find to something like that would be in that book by Patsy Doris Hale, who I think is still alive, but I'm not sure. She's his daughter-in-law. She was married to one of his sons, Billy.
The one who's not dead, I guess.
Yeah. But the sons are dead. And Bobby actually started a cult, an incestuous cult in Alaska. He's the one who apparently killed Kathleen Connolly. So he had a whole bizarre, horrible
Wait a
life.
minute. Yeah, that's tickling a memory in the back of my head.
Yeah.
For some reason.
Yeah.
So Bobby's married to Kathleen Connolly, is exonerated in that, but then later on starts a cult in Texas. Then they move to New Mexico. Then they wind up in Alaska. He goes by the moniker later on Papa Pilgrim. And so when Byron and I were first talking about this story, we sort of thought that was where this story was going to go, because he is convicted of sex crimes and all kinds of awfulness. Like every cult story you've ever heard, is convicted of all kinds of awfulness, and then is sent to prison and dies in prison. Unfortunately, in very, very short order after he's convicted, sentenced, and I think he dies 3 months later or something very, very short. So that's what we kind of thought our original story was going to be before we got back on to thinking about IB. Yeah, there's the cover
of the book, but it's blurring it on Zoom. So let me see.
Yeah, we got it. It came in good.
Yep.
Yeah, sorry about this. Okay, there we go.
Wow.
Yeah, so this is Billy and this is Bobby.
Well, of course that's Bobby, of course, with the beard and yeah, of course that's Bobby. That looks cult leader to me. The coroner's inquest that happened with the wife, Kathleen Connolly.
Yeah.
Those are readily available online, I guess. Can you find those?
I have not found the coroner's inquest, but there are several newspaper reports that you can find through newspapers.com.
Okay. The B-58 bomber, I think that just speaks to, I don't think I'd ever heard about buzzing the Kremlin. Brian, had you heard about that before this story? I'd never heard that.
Nope.
I have not been able to corroborate that with other sources. And I have several, I've got a couple of books and I read online about the B-58. And so that could be hearsay. That part of it could be hearsay.
Mm-hmm.
Now, at least that specific detail of it, literally buzzing Moscow, at Mach 2.2, and Kennedy making a concession. But that's what I've heard, and I haven't seen anything that directly contradicts that.
All right, so let's address the big question here. I had never heard of IB Hale before this story, except for when I was told that it's about a guy named IB Hale. That's all I really knew. Dallas, Fort Worth, you guys mentioned this, but Dallas and Fort Worth were a hotbed of organized crime in the 1960s.
Well, more importantly, I mean, it gets confusing for me. But more important to me is that it was a hotbed of angry conservatism.
Oh yeah, absolutely, absolutely.
And so there was something that was published in one of the Dallas papers before Kennedy showed up, accusing him of treason, wanted for
Hmm.
treason, that whole thing. I
That was
forget if,
General. I believe that was General Walker. That was that General
yeah,
Walker.
Edward Walker. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, that wanted that.
And
The one that was allegedly there was an attempt on his life allegedly by Lee Harvey Oswald as well.
right. Yeah, something
Yeah.
strange like that. Yeah. Although, Oswald seems to have been such a puppet of these guys doing these weird things. He seemed to be a disturbed guy who was, easily used in strange ways. That's just my opinion,
Yeah,
you know.
because you had
Mm.
in addition to that stuff, you had the white Russian community that was there.
Right.
George de Mohrenschildt and those folks
Hmm.
who a lot of people think was Oswald's handler.
Right.
We're kind of getting into the weeds, I guess, on that because I'm a JFK junkie from way back. In,
Yeah.
Yeah.
in fact, in
Told you.
1993, for the same radio station you guys worked for, I did a 30th anniversary special on our old program, Sound Source,
Oh,
an interview with an author who had just written a new book on the Kennedy assassination in the 30th. That was 1993. My God,
do you still have that? Do you still have a copy of that?
I do.
I would love to hear that.
I do. It's on reel to reel, so I'll need to get a reel
Yeah.
to reel player and figure out how to get that to it. But yeah,
Yeah.
I think I might have the raw footage. I'll have to check. I'm not sure I have the actual.
Mm.
This is
Mm.
Sound Source recording from the well in Sausalito. Um, but I mean, in terms of like crime, there were mob bosses in Dallas. I mean,
Well,
Jacob Rubenstein was connected to a lot of those guys. Jack
here's
Ruby.
here's an extra story, if you don't mind me taking the time. And if you do, then
No,
you can
not at
edit it
all.
out.
We have endless time.
My dad, through Bert, met Jack Ruby uh,
Wow.
in about 62 or 63.
Okay.
My dad then became enamored of the headline stripper at the Carousel Club. Her name was Janet Conforto. She went by the name Jada.
Jada.
Jada or
Jada. Yeah,
Miss
yeah,
Miss
yeah,
Jada.
yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
And they were dating. And so because of
Wait a
that,
minute. Who was dating?
my dad,
Okay. All right.
my dad dated Jada. My mom tore up all her photographs back in the 60s, the photos of Jada. So I don't have any photos of that would corroborate this in any way. Um, except for the fact, and you can find this online, that my dad is in the Warren Commission report because he was calling Jada at the Carousel Club. And the FBI spotted that once they started investigating, and they went and visited my dad and asked, "What is this? Why are you calling the
Mm.
Carousel Club?" So my dad explained, and this is the thing that's detailed in the Warren Commission report, that that's me. I was calling because I was calling to talk to Jada because I was calling to find out when she got off work, so I could go from Fort Worth to Dallas and pick her up, and we could go have an evening together. So, uh, I'm not. I don't think that in any way that that implies that my dad was involved in the Kennedy assassination, nor Bert. They both liked him.
Mhm.
And I do remember my dad telling me that he was having breakfast the morning that Ruby shot Oswald and had a moment of, oh, I met that guy, you know.
Oh,
And so in terms of the crime there, yeah, Bert had been sort of sent as this is too highfalutin, but like an emissary to
mhm.
to Jack Ruby from the guys in Chicago. Just go tell Jack hello from us,
Gotcha.
And so Bert, this is I have some of this in that recording at the restaurant. Bert said, yeah, I just decided, I would take your dad to Dallas, show him the nightlife, maybe introduce him to a few people he hadn't met yet. And his idea of that was to take him to the Carousel Club.
It seems to have been a hub of a lot of interesting activity in the early 1960s. The
Yeah,
Carousel Club.
yeah. And my dad, I'll acknowledge, did have a bit of a fondness for gangsters. Even when my dad was in medical school in Kansas City, he would hang out with the gangsters and mobsters there, and that's where he got his sense of fashion. I mean, right up until, this century, just a few years ago, I mean, he his sense of fashion was still influenced in terms of the fine Italian shoes, the short boots,
Yep.
and the tailored suits, tie clips, that kind of thing. And lots of cologne, and it worked for him. Boy, did it work in the 70s particularly. So
What kind of doctor was your dad?
he was an orthopedic surgeon.
Okay. So, getting to the actual events of the assassination, there have been rumors for years that the path that they were taking, the presidential motorcade, was changed and taken down. Is it Houston Street? I can't remember.
And then Elm.
Houston and Elm, and that's where
that sharp turn, that hairpin turn, which was not supposed to have been allowed.
Right. Because they had to slow down to an extreme degree to get those cars around, because they were in the big
corner.
around the corner, and that set up for basically a shooting gallery.
Yeah.
A
kill box,
kill box. Yeah, that's a good way to put it.
And so that's why I bring that up, that Patsy Doris Hale brings that up in her book, that he may have had something to do with that. And she's speaking as a family member. Now I've tried to reach her a few times, but have just not been able to get through to her. I don't know if she has decided that she doesn't want to talk about this, but here's my copy of the book. You can see all these tape flags.
Yeah.
She has a website, and on the website you'll find a zillion pictures of I.B. Hale, in some pretty outlandish sharpshooting poses, including this one.
Oh yeah.
Right. And then on newspapers.com, I found several articles and announcements about him, conducting a shooting demonstration, or a lecture on Second Amendment rights. There's one really funny one where he's dressed up in this very cheesy cowboy outfit, and he was going to France to give a shooting demonstration. So,
the shots themselves. I remember the documentary that you talked about, where they sat down with the seven. I watched that. Yeah, it's a great piece. It's a great
I'd
piece.
like it. Yeah.
Yeah, I'll add an eighth to that list. And I don't know if Brian told you this or not, but my dad was a medical student at Parkland the day they brought Kennedy in. And he told me, before he died a few years back, he told me several years ago that, in his opinion, as a medical student, but more importantly, as a guy who grew up hunting and grew up around guns, that there was no way in hell that shot came from behind. No way in hell.
If you watch the documentary, you'll see that they point out that the autopsy photos from Bethesda do not match at all what they saw at Parkland. And Parkland,
to a person, they said that's not what was there.
Yeah, the back of his head was gone, whereas the autopsy photos from Bethesda, the back of the head of this person, whoever it is intact. And another thing that they mention in that CBS documentary, do you remember this? That once Kennedy was declared dead, the medical examiner at Parkland, whose duty it was to perform an autopsy in the county in which the crime was committed, tried to stop the Secret Service from removing the body. Yeah.
Right.
And there's a story about this big guy lifting up, putting his hands under the arms of the ME and putting him against the wall,
right,
and wagging his finger at him. I do wonder if that was I.B. Hale.
Well, we do. I mean, also in Patsy Doris Hale's book, she says that on the 22nd, he basically dematerialized for 2 or 3 days, didn't come home.
He and
didn't
Bobby
know where he was.
Disappeared for 3 days. Yeah.
Right. And she was either told later on that he was at Parkland, or maybe she just assumed he was.
Yeah, I forget what that is, but she speculates that he was at Parkland.
Right. And so when we were going back, thinking through this story, I mean, we Byron and I had a number of kind of aha moments on this, because when we started on this, it was like, Well, here we have this man who is a sharpshooter, and every single story that's ever been told about the JFK assassination and Lee Harvey Oswald talks about the incredible level of skill you'd have to have in order to accomplish this. So, okay, we have that. Byron and I ask ourselves the question: so where was this guy on 21st and 22nd? With nominal searching, really, we're able to start tying these threads together, not having any idea that he was there that day. Byron, go ahead. I can see you're about to speak.
I'm sorry,
No, you're good. Go ahead.
but I got to tell Morris this.
Uh-huh.
Also on the Tarrant County uh, clerk's website, and I do have a copy of this document. When looking for I.B. Hale, I found a document that was initiated on November 22nd, 1963, the date of the assassination. And on that date, Hale supposedly initiated the purchase of a house. Now, if he had been asked to do security detail at the Hotel Texas,
Mm-hmm.
and then once Kennedy was shot, I mean, the whole country came to a stop.
Mm-hmm.
I remember that when I was married and my wife and I were buying a house, we couldn't close on the day we were supposed to because Reagan had died. And, he died of natural causes and it wasn't a shock, but just out of respect. Whereas on November 22nd of 63, everything in the country just stopped.
Mm-hmm.
People were not, I don't think people were conducting real estate transactions on the afternoon of November 22nd. But that's what the date is on this. It was later consummated in December, but that's the date on the document, and it sent, shivers through my body. I just went, "Hey, can I curse?"
Of course.
I just went, "The fuck is this? You have got to be kidding. This can't be." But it's real. It's in the, I mean, as real as it can be. It's in the clerk's,
So it could be an
records.
alibi, or could be something
Could
that
be an alibi. That's my
could,
point.
could
is that,
be.
that it may
I
have
wasn't
been, it
there.
may
I
have
was
been,
right. I
yeah,
was across town.
I couldn't have been me because I was buying a house,
Right.
Really? On the 22nd in the afternoon,
Right.
he was declared dead at 12:30, and then, at 4 o'clock, you're buying a house. I don't think so.
Right.
It seems like the other person might have said, "You know what? We're going to close on Monday. We're gonna hold
We're gonna
off. We're
hold
gonna."
off. Right.
Yeah. So,
Well,
uh, anyway, but yeah, please, any other questions or just, you can try to, we're probably wrong. Okay. I acknowledge that we're probably wrong, but there are so many dots that connect themselves and there's so many coincidences. And I talked to a private investigator about this in Texas, and he said, well, in my experience, there's no such thing as coincidence.
Right.
So I don't
well,
know.
I'm gonna pay you guys a tremendous compliment here by using an old Dream Idiots phrase that actually comes from the film JFK. You got the right ta-ta, and you might have the wrong ho-ho. You might have the right ho-ho. There's a lot of smoke here, man. Men, gentlemen, there's a lot
Yeah.
of
I mean,
smoke here. This is
yeah. So I mean, we were able to. I mean, I think it's the case. We have. I mean, I will put all the references we have in there. More than one source that indicates that he may have been involved in planning out the route of the motorcade, the last minute change. At least one account implies that I.B. Hale is riding in the car directly behind Kennedy. We have that's mentioned at least once.
Yeah,
But
there are a lot of extra crazy things that, But another question. Okay, I'm stepping on you again, Brian. I apologize.
go ahead.
I'll, uh,
I do it every week. So go
uh,
ahead.
but I'm just excited. But one thing that does occur to me is, as you know, people are going to ask, well, who the hell is this guy? Why haven't we heard about him before? Well, he died in 1971 from a heart
Mhm.
attack. He had a heart attack while dancing, and I forget if it was Rivercrest Country Club or Green Oaks or Ridgely, but that's also in the newspapers. Um, and I also did not find any. I contacted the Fort Worth Police Department, and they did not have any copies of any records of the incident in 1968. which seems bizarre to me because you hear that it happened and the police did show up. In fact, there's a little more to the recording in which there's a police officer who calls back to the station and asks for a couple more squad cars. So they were there. So my speculation on that is, pardon me, that that Hale just went to the police department and said, "Hey, I'm IB Hale. I'm chief of security at General Dynamics. I'm an FBI agent. I'm friends with J. Edgar Hoover," which was true. "Give me those records and the copies." And, I can only assume they would have said, "Oh, yes, sir. Here you go."
Really easy to make stuff disappear back then.
And so, and he was, because he was a surveillance and security expert, he knew, I'm sure he knew, how to remove himself from records and record keeping. And that kind of person is called a negative template.
Oh.
So, that someone who existed, but you can't find much evidence.
Mm-hmm.
So
it's like being scrubbed in today's internet lingo.
Right. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Scrubbing the files.
So if someone says, "Well, why haven't we heard?" Well, I just think he, sidestepped all the things that could have ensnared him. I mean, do I know that he did it? No, but it seems very possible to me.
Right.
Well, I agree.
The more we dug, the more we found evidence to keep digging versus
it was interesting. It was an interesting process because I had this cognitive leap. What if the guy who shot at us shot Kennedy? And at first it was just a fantasy, but then all these things in between started connecting. And each time I would call Brian and go, "Brian, you're never going to guess. I found this other thing," and so we were each like, "Can you believe this shit? Holy fuck. Holy shit." So we've been jumping out of our skin to share the story with you, Morris, for a while.
Oh, this is just astonishing. I mean, there's very little about the Kennedy assassination that makes my jaw drop at this point because I've been on it since I was a teenager, and this is one of the ones that made it. And I think, can you speak to a little bit as a native Fort Worthian? My dad was born in Fort Worth, but he didn't live there long. Fort Worth has always been kind of a hotbed of Texas conservatism. Yes.
Well, it's no coincidence that I moved away from Fort Worth 30 years ago. And part of it had to do with the political climate. Mm-hmm. I was never threatened, but I just didn't fit in with. I mean, but there are plenty of liberals in Fort Worth, and they support each other, but generally speaking, there's just something about the general vibe, and I can only imagine that back in the '60s, it ran even hotter. And there's another book that doesn't directly factor in, but I did read some of it, and it influenced my view of this. Terror in the Night. I can't remember the author at the moment, but it's actually a look at more like in the Deep South in Mississippi and so forth, of how the Klan in the '60s, the mid to late '60s, pivoted to attacking not just black folks but Jews as well, because they saw them as enabling the blacks. So there were lots of bombings of synagogues and bombings of rabbis' houses and things like that. So that to me fits right exactly in with that restrictive covenant. And we can show you a copy of that. It's very fuzzy and difficult to read. But when I called the Tarrant County clerk and she found it, she was like, "Oh, I think you're going to be very happy. It's fuzzy, but I think this is it." She said, "This is it. We do have a copy of it." So
you're going to be very happy and very angry,
right, at the same time. Yeah, but I mean, just happy that it still exists, in some form that you can look at. It's many generations of photostating or whatever that was done in the late '50s.
Stenograph, right?
Yeah, stenograph. Yeah, the man who was selling the properties on that street, his name was Howard Cattell. He was a World War II veteran, and then he came back to Texas and had a bunch of property. And he and my dad got along. I don't know if it was because my dad was a surgeon. My dad had a good sense of humor. My
Hmm.
dad was personable, but they got along. And for one reason or another, Cattell just said, you know what? There's this thing. There's a rule. I'm not gonna. You can buy the house. You know. And Hale was like, uh-uh. And
Ixnay on the UJ.
right. My
Yeah.
and he my Hale even went to the hospital where my dad worked and badmouthed him to the board and tried to get him
Good
kicked off.
God.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. He tried to get him kicked off the board of
Holy
the
shit.
surgeons at the Fort Worth Osteopathic Medical Center.
Merely,
So
merely by arguing, well, he's a
he's a
Jew.
goddamn Jew, you know. Something I don't know what he said, but it was
He didn't try to
unwarranted.
malign. He didn't try to allege some other impropriety. He just went in there and said,
I don't know. I just don't know. It's
You're
so
going to
far in the
go in
past.
there to get your knee fixed. He's going to cut your pecker off.
Right.
Good
But it was
Lord.
something, but it was still, the point is that it was unwarranted, it was inappropriate, and it was just him being vindictive and trying to find some way to get
Mhm.
this guy off the street and maybe get him out of town.
Um,
And something else.
uh-oh.
My mom told me, my mom passed away a few years ago, that when the shooting happened, I can't verify this either, but she said that one of the bullets came so close that it knocked a bobby pin out of her hair. That's what she's told me. That's what she told me all my life. So, you know, I mean, in terms of that versus the headshot of JFK,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
and Patsy Doris does explain specifically that he taught his boys to shoot. He was a hunter. He knew how to be patient and wait for the shot.
right.
You know, and I have a picture that Brian can show you or I can show you of the window frame from you know, much more recently. The house is gone now. I wish I had done more work in terms of investigating this, but the window frame, the glass is replaced and it's dirty, but there is this aluminum frame and that's the name of this whole thing. And there's this weird bend in the top spar of this window frame. And if you line it up, the bend is such that it could have come from the street. And that's what my dad had told me that
Mm-hmm.
a car rolled up in the middle of the street and then bang, 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 and then the car
So so
sped
so,
off.
so, so firing, you know, because there's quite a slope in the front as well.
Right. So
So
firing
firing
up
up through the
toward,
window and then
yeah,
into the ceiling. Is that where they?
into it would have gone, yeah, into the wall or the ceiling. And I wish that I had investigated that and taken those mirrors down and done some more, you know, sort of archaeological digging in the house. I didn't, and the house doesn't exist anymore. So that's not a
It's
possibility.
funny, but the picture that you painted for me for some reason, and I think it starts with the phone call that you start with, which was
Uh,
brilliant, by the way. Um, I'm picturing this house at the end of a long, lonely cul-de-sac, but it's not. It's like on the
no,
side. It's like surrounded on both sides by other houses
you can look on
or
Google
was.
Maps. Yeah, you can look on Google Maps and you'll see that it's the first property on the street and it's to your left. When you come down, you
Okay.
approach it, you're driving north, but the slope is downward. And over to the left is this house. And it was an imposing house, even when it was two stories. And then after, you know, the shooting, my dad got even more grandiose and built a third story on top of the
Right.
house. And so I think that house being so big, being at the front of the street, uh, and that Cattell had allowed a Jewish man to buy the house, a Jewish man who was with a woman who was pregnant but not married. I was born out of wedlock. Um,
Scandal.
yeah, you know, I think that Hale just found this to be too much, and uh, and decided to take matters into his own hands the way he knew how to deal with things. You know, if you have a problem,
Right.
a gun is a great tool to solve a problem.
Right. So
And
he did it. He asked Bobby to do it. I mean, obviously he asked his boys to go break into that apartment in Los Angeles.
uh,
Right. So that, I mean, right.
now,
Scumbags all around.
when you and I missed each other at school by
Mm,
a year.
Hmm.
But the first time I met you, you introduced yourself, told me your name, and said, "I'm a secular half Jew." Your mother was not Jewish, right?
Right.
Okay.
Right.
There's more.
And
There's more fuel for his fire.
Right.
You
yeah,
know?
yeah.
Yeah.
He may have seen, I mean, this is extreme, but yeah, maybe he saw my mom as a race traitor.
I
Uh,
don't think that's extreme at all.
No, that's right.
I mean, because
For the
literally,
time,
if you,
especially.
if you, yeah, if you look at the document that uses the word Aryan, the non-Aryan race, which is a clumsy way,
That's
but that's
shit crazy.
right, but that's with intent.
Oh yeah,
That
oh
absolutely.
yeah.
it doesn't even say white; it says Aryan. So and they capitalized it. So it's there's intent there with that use of that
Mhm.
word.
Brian, with his brown eyes and olive skin, would have a tough time getting a house back then. I think because
You're not
you
from
just don't
around here, are you?
you are not
Hola,
around from
hola,
around
¿cómo
here.
está? Right. Yeah. I mean, yeah. Could have been rough.
We've done a couple episodes actually that kind of look at this part of Texas back then. I don't know if you've listened to them or not, Byron, but I've got an entire episode dedicated to Jack Ruby
Jack
and
Ruby.
what he
Yeah.
was up to at the time in
Oh,
Dallas.
I've
And
got to hear
then
that.
it's a fun one because Brian doesn't know what's coming. And his reaction is almost as good as mine was today.
Oh,
And then there was also a story I did on. You ever heard of the book The Inheritors?
no, it's ringing a very quiet bell because I think I saw something about your
Yeah, it's a book
investigation of
that
this.
basically that the elite of Fort Worth got banned without much trouble at all because it shed a negative light on the wealth, the oil wealth and cattle wealth that made up Fort Worth of the
Oh,
upper class.
wow.
It's those same kind of people, I think, that created a person like our gentleman in question tonight.
Right.
Yeah, I would love to read that book. I would love to hear that podcast. Now, I've got to look that up, and then Brian, you guys please remind me, because I don't want to take the time to write it down while we're on camera. But
Right. Right.
Yeah, yeah, I'll get it to you.
Morris, there is something else.
Oh, it just keeps giving.
Just one more thing. One more thing.
So
It's like Hanukkah. There's just one gift after the other.
well, you have to wait for the next installment
Right.
Yeah.
to light the candle. Um, so in after the shooting, and as I told you that we had all these security measures at the house, and we also had a German Shepherd, and he was very loyal to our family, and my brother and I would take naps on him, you
Oh.
know, and then he was kidnapped, the dog, uh, and in 1975 and disappeared. And not only do I just, as a knee-jerk reaction, suspect the Hale boys, but Billy Hale, by that time, was a veterinarian in Fort Worth. So he would have known how to lure a dog away from its family. So my dad had left Caesar out on the back step for a short amount of time. He was on a chain, and then he went out, and the chain was unhooked, and Caesar was just gone. And so I don't know if they used a dog in heat. I don't know if they used food. But I do think that they lured him away, injected him with something, dumped his body, and it was a message. It was payback
Right.
And
because they
Yeah.
they
8
may
years
have
later.
yeah they may have seen my dad as responsible for, you know, for Hale's heart attack. I don't know, but I know that the dog disappeared, strange circumstances. Billy was a veterinarian.
a strange part of me wants to know what he was dancing to when he died. I don't know why.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Seriously, I don't know why.
I wish there were footage, but yeah.
Karma Chameleon. No.
No, 71. So yeah,
Probably not.
some old standard at Ridgely Country Club.
Yeah, it was because Ridgely was one of the big ones, right? There was the not River Oaks, that's in Houston.
There's Rivercrest.
Rivercrest. Yeah. That one shows up. I think that one shows up in my story on Fort Worth. I think.
Yeah.
Um,
And Colonial.
Oh, that Colonial was the one that was one of the last to go to allow black people as members, right?
Right. Yeah. And that was also an issue for my dad in the 60s. It was also he, because of his status as a surgeon, and the fact that he'd helped a bunch of people, some of them influential. He got a membership to a couple of country clubs when
Oh, geez.
that was also not allowed
Hmm.
in terms of non-whites.
I think Colonial didn't let non-whites in, I want to say until the 21st century, but I could be wrong on that. That could have been a very recent thing where they finally repealed
Yeah, that I
their
don't know.
bylaws. I don't
That I
know
don't
either.
know. But
That
what I
seems
recall
right,
is,
but
yeah, well, right. I wouldn't be
yeah.
surprised, but what I do recall is my dad saying, I got these memberships for a Jewish guy that was very unusual, but I
Mhm.
had some clout. And so had that happened, around this same time, 66, 67, 68, that may have been one more thing that agitated Hale, you know, that, he's trying to change everything. Who does this
Right.
guy think he is?
Yeah. The uppity Jew, right?
Yeah.
Thank God we
Yeah.
don't have any more of those people in this country today.
Right.
That's wrong. They're everywhere. They're very good people. Okay? They love me. I love them. You shouldn't say that. That's illegal. Very illegal.
He needs to be fired. Fired immediately. We're gonna have a battle of the battling Trumps here in a moment. I think you would win that one though, Byron. That was excellent.
That's pretty good.
Outstanding, Trump.
I
Yeah.
can't do Trump at all.
Any more
But
comments, guys? This was astonishing, and it was quite frankly, people watching it are going to be wondering: is he having a stroke when he's listening to it? Because it's just it's so tied in to our identity as Texans, which is strange because all of us were born in Texas, right?
yep.
Yeah, I was.
Yeah,
I was a baby
and
when that whole thing happened. They had me on the floor in the front living room.
and one of a friend of the podcast was in San Antonio as a child, and he shook John Kennedy's hand
Mm,
as a little boy
mm,
the day before they flew to Fort Worth.
right. Yeah, they did. I think Houston, San Antonio, Fort Worth, Dallas, right?
Yep, yep,
Yeah.
yep. And he was on the tarmac in San Antonio, and he met
Yeah.
him, and he was wearing a T-shirt that said "Future President of the USA." And his mother was so distraught she took the shirt home and burned it after Kennedy was assassinated because she didn't want her son to die.
Oh, wow.
Yeah,
Wow.
I mean, it's just
That's poignant.
it's such an insane chapter in American history. But when
Yeah.
you look back at what that part of Texas was, man, he shouldn't have gone. I mean,
Well,
he
okay,
shouldn't have gone.
there's another thing. There's another thing, and I don't have the information in front of me right now, but there was an incident before his shooting, and
Adlai
his
Stevenson.
thank you.
Hmm. Yeah, he was spat on and hit. Yep.
There you
Yep.
go.
Hit with a placard. Yep.
There you go. And so as a result of that, someone, oh, I forget how I got a copy of this, but someone did write to the White House, a woman who was concerned and said, Mr. Kennedy, I just don't think this is a good time for you to come to Texas because, of these things that have happened.
Right.
And I guess it was Pierre Salinger who actually wrote back and said, thank you for your concern, madam, but we have things well under control. But
wrong there.
yeah, but it ties in to my mind, just a little bit with also this new Netflix show, Death by Lightning, which is about the assassination of James A. Garfield. And the title comes from him telling his wife, once he is on track to become president, and it's a really interesting story and great acting. His wife is concerned that he'll be killed, and he says, something like, one can no more guard against assassination than death by lightning. So, assassination of presidents didn't start in 1963, but it's still always a horrible thing to see happen.
And there was a great line from another show, another movie. I can't remember what it was, but they said, if you're trying to assassinate someone, the Secret Service has to have a winning record, an absolute unbeaten record. We just have to win once.
Yeah.
Right. When they're trying to do that. And it's,
well, except, I mean, yes and no, do they? I mean, look how Reagan was shot. If you watch that video, he didn't die, but he almost did.
yeah.
And, this idea of, good guys with a gun will always stop bad guys with a gun. No, because they got the drop on them. Hinckley popped out of nowhere with a pistol and, and pop, 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 pop. So,
Right.
And more bullets flying around makes everybody safer.
right.
So
Right.
no matter who's shooting them, right? Okay.
No such thing as friendly fire. Anyway, all right. I'm taking. Uh, I'm messing things up here as a
No,
guest.
you're not.
No,
No, you're
but,
not.
but what, do you have any more questions for me?
I I don't. I want to listen to it again. Um, and just I like to when I listen to stuff, I'm the opposite of you. I kind of have to have my, you know, so I want to listen to it again,
Mhm.
and I'll get back with you because I just kind of want to hear it. But as
Sure.
a first go, man, what a sound portrait, as
Yeah.
Brian introduced it. That is
Well,
incredible,
I mean,
incredible
yeah,
work, guys.
Oh,
I mean,
thank you.
I mean,
Thank you.
and yeah, thanks to Byron for 98% of it. I mean, I've been, sticking in little bookends and little comments here and there, but this has been, Byron's project really, and we're the lucky ones to get to sort of be the vehicle for it a little bit here, which is
Well,
great.
thanks for helping
Um,
me. And yeah, I could be wrong. We could be wrong. And
you know,
this is not the end of it. Hopefully, there are citizen sleuths who could find something, and Morris, because of your interest in it, maybe something will unfold in your mind.
Hmm.
right.
Um,
Yeah, I mean, as we've I think alluded to several times here. I mean, as we've gone through this process, which has been well over a year, 18 months or so, I've had anyway, many, goose pimply type moments where as we start to braid together these connective threads, I mean, we all have RTF communication journalistic backgrounds. None of us, I mean, Morris certainly has much more of the academic credentials than you or I, Byron. But I can speak for all three of us when I say that we're not trying to put forth a conspiracy theory, and we're not trying to create a narrative here. As we have dug into this story, the deeper we have gone, which is not deep at all, every single
but as
time
deep as we know how to at this point.
right, but we have only been encouraged that there is more work to be done. Every single thread we have found seems to further support this foundation of who is this man. His, again, means, motive, opportunity. I think there's so much there that, who knows, but as I allude to in the actual sound portrait, there are so many folks out there who are much more detail oriented and living in this headspace and have those resources and that journalistic drive. I'm convinced there's something more here. I'm convinced there's a Netflix series, a podcast series. Yeah, I'm the last person to go down QAnon or any of those conspiracy theory type things, but until someone tells us definitively it couldn't have happened that way because IB was in Minneapolis that day, or
Hmm.
whatever the heck give us something
Yeah.
that undermines this idea. Great, but we need to then crowdsource on this and find those people, whether they're professional journalists or online sleuths or whatever they are, who
Right.
hear this and go, "Wait, I think these guys might have something here,"
Yeah.
and then use their tools to further that story.
Yeah. And Brian, you're the one who told me about is his name Roger Miller, the politician whose dad
Right.
had the car dealership and was friends with
Mhm.
IB Hale, and explained in that interview from a couple of years ago, it was one of the first things you found when you started looking for IB Hale, and I had missed it because it was new. It was a new interview, and this guy was like, "Oh yeah, IB Hale was a friend of my dad's, and they, he was asked to provide security at the Hotel Texas." I mean, I just was.
Yeah, it was a throwaway comment.
Are
I
you
think
effing kidding me? What? That puts him right there.
right.
Okay,
So
maybe I'm
so
not nuts.
so
He
for
said,
Morris,
yelling.
right, right.
I'm not
So
nuts. I'm not nuts.
Roger Miller, I think, is still in the U.S. House of Representatives, I believe.
If I have
Hardcore.
the name right, I might have that
Roger
name wrong.
Roger Williams.
Williams. That's it. It was
Williams.
Jack Williams Chevrolet. Jack
Right.
Williams Chevrolet. So it was
So
Jack Williams and IB Hale were friends. And as far as the IB Hale and John Connolly connection, that's explained in Connolly's book, In the Shadow of History. He talks
Mhm.
about it. And basically, in recounting the story of his daughter's death, in the book, basically writes, this is the first time and the only time that I've discussed this at length, and it's the last time I ever want to talk about it. That the book is already, many decades old, but it's right there. He and IB Hale drove down from Fort Worth to Tallahassee together.
Right.
Well, they
So
were
they knew each other.
in-laws. They were family.
Right,
I mean,
right,
by marriage,
right,
but they were family.
right. And then Connolly ends up getting shot along with Kennedy. And then Oswald is in the window shooting.
Right.
And the connection between the two of them is they both know I.B. Hale.
Yeah, it's one
That
degree
right
of
there,
separation.
that right there is yeah, that's the 1 degree of separation that just floors me about this.
So if I happen to kill Kennedy, great. If I happen to kill Connolly, great. If I can drag along Oswald, who appears to be somewhat dim and easily manipulated because he wants to be, he has this thing wanting to be a
Delusions of
hero.
grandeur.
Right, exactly. What he wants to be lauded for having, played a role in something big and important, and he certainly did. But I'm a patsy, so drag someone along like that to be the fall guy. Perfect.
Yeah, yeah.
Right.
And when he was interrogated by the FBI, I believe those notes were destroyed. Oswald's notes when they interrogated him, I think.
Right. So
Wow.
the challenge is now, I mean, has been laid out there. So hopefully, and we're going to be sending this out to everyone we can think of. If you're watching this, listening to this, and you're thinking, "Wow, this is kind of interesting," please share it to anyone you know, especially folks that are sort of our age and older, who might have direct connections. I don't know, but until someone tells me this is a dead end and this is definitively not IB Hale, I want someone to dive into this.
I think that's the right approach because I'm assuming you guys kind of got to this point where you're not really looking for more information to prove what you think. You're looking for information to disprove what you think.
Sure, whatever.
Right? I mean, you're like, okay, this is fitting. There's got to be, and you're waiting for something to drop and waiting for something to drop, and it never happens.
That's and that's why it's taken us so long in part to bring this to fruition, because I was hoping there would be some, one more little tidbit that would come up, one way or another, that would contribute to the story, indicating that maybe we're right or showing us that we're probably wrong. But nothing did, and we finally got our asses in gear and, have done this. But, I hope no one's angry at me for talking about this, this far along. But the shooting at our house happened. The only evidence for it that I have is that recording. Why do I have the recording? Because my dad was a recording nut, and it was his interest in electronics that got me interested in media in the first place. And Morris, at some point, I'll tell you some hilarious stories about my dad and his early video recording equipment. Yeah, he wanted to make some pornos. So, yeah. And I have a lot of other recordings from the 60s, including, a really uncomfortable conversation between him and my mom, where they're just sort of torturing themselves and torturing each other. It's a very, they both dealt each other a lot of blows, and that was early in their relationship. And that was before I was even conceived. And so it was, there was a real darkness to the whole thing. And it just ended up snagging this incident. And, years later, when I came across this reel-to-reel tape that I was transferring from that Sony deck to a digital tape, my dad found me, and he's like, "What are you doing? You're wasting your time with that shit." And you shouldn't be, don't fuck around with those old tapes. Anyway,
Why aren't you masturbating, son? You should be masturbating.
You're not too far off. But anyway, we're like, "Hey, look, get that shit. We've got pornos downstairs. Let's go watch some of it." I'm like, "Dad, I don't want to watch." Anyway, so he really did, though. He found me on the third floor of the house doing this tape transfer. He's like, "What are you wasting your time with that for?" And then right at that moment, there was that buzzing sound. And then, "Operator, get me the police, please, as quickly as possible." I have never had larger goosebumps, and I just sort of gasped, and I was like, Dad, come back, you are gonna guess wait, hold on, and I'm listening to the tape, and so I had no idea that we even had a recording of that. He never told me that we did. I just was trying to find some good, good material on these old tapes to use for my sound collages and so forth.
And you've made a copy of this, I assume.
There are
Several copies of it. Okay.
Yeah. And now it's going out.
But yeah, and that, now it's going to be archived forever. I mean, so you couldn't kill this if you wanted to, because it'll be on. This will be on Spotify and everything else here quickly. So, and as I allude to at the end of that, again, so if you have information for us, actually, it's a mailing address now on our website, and then you can write to us at the ibhaleproject@gmail.com. Would love to hear from anyone, everyone who wants to maybe dive into this. You never know what we're going to find, but we're crossing fingers.
I think you guys are onto something. Thanks for letting me be a part of it. That's astonishing.
Thank you. So, thanks for giving me and us this platform, and let's keep the dialogue going one way or another.
Absolutely. All right. As I always say, be good to each other, especially the people on your street, because you got to live next to them. And don't shoot at their porch.
At their kids, at their wives.
Their kids.
That's not fair cricket.
It is not fair cricket.
Yeah,
you're absolutely right.
Just binging, right?
Right.
Bye, everybody. Thanks.
So long.
Bye.
Thank you.